So welcome to those of you who are here for the judging review session. I'm going to try to go through this quickly and so that we can kind of just get through the basics. And then if you have any questions, you are free to ask. So hopefully everyone understands that this year for judging, versus in past years, there has been a change in first and all regions and all of our events, whether they are in person or remote, teams will have one judging session that is 30 minutes long, roughly. And so on the screen that you see here is the judging session flow chart. I know Sarah has shared this with teams previously, but I just did want to go through it so you could see and make sure that everyone was clear as to what is going to happen during that 30-minute judging session. So teams will come into this judging session, and as the team has a couple minutes to set, will have about 2 minutes or so to set up, for doing their first presentation, which will be the project. And as they're setting up, the judges may be asking them some questions. Those will typically kind of be maybe some very kind of light core values questions, like, tell us about your team, or tell us, about your team, how you got your team name, or where are you from, how many people are on your team, kind of intro, introductory sorts of questions to learn more about your team as you're setting up, and ones that they shouldn't have to think too hard about. After about 2 minutes, the judges are going to invite your team to start the innovation project presentation. They'll have up to 5 minutes of uninterrupted time to give their presentation for the innovation project. And then immediately following that, the judges will be asking questions of the team about their innovation project and also about how they use the core values in innovation when working on the innovation project. And this is very important to remember, that the core values questions are going to be sprinkled throughout this judging session. After about 5 minutes of asking questions about the innovation project, the judges will then invite the team to do their robot design presentation. And again, the team will get up to 5 minutes of uninterrupted time to do their robot design presentation. And then following that, same kind of pattern, we're going to go into robot design, question and answer. But again, there are also going to be questions about how the team used core values while working on robot design. And then at the end, you're going to have after that, there's going to be about 3 minutes or so to ask additional questions, core values questions that the judges may not have that may not have really fit into the other time periods, or, to kind of get any other information the judges feel they need to know to finish filling out the core values rubric. And then the other thing that's new this year is that the judges will provide some live feedback. That will be approximately the last 5 minutes or so of the judging session. I will say sometimes judging goes a little, sometimes those other judging parts go a little bit long because the judges get excited asking lots of questions, or maybe the team is extra long-winded and the judges didn't want to cut them off on a question. So sometimes that feedback time period might be a little less than 5 minutes, but sometime in that last 5 minutes of judging, the judges will kind of, sometimes ask the team what they might want to hear from them, like what they are most curious to hear, get feedback on, or they might give feedback on each of the areas, or they may focus on even just one or two areas that they felt like they really wanted to talk to the team and give them some advice or tell them what they really did well in. That will vary from such, depending on the judges. So that basically takes you to your 30 minutes, and then the team leaves, and then the judges will be deliberating on the rubrics and completing the rubrics after the team leaves. So that is your 30-minute judging session right there. And again, what is going on during that judging session is that the judges are trying to find out information that helps them complete these rubrics. So hopefully all teams are looking at the rubrics and paying attention to the rubrics as the season goes by and as they prepare their presentations. Because again, what the judges, are going to be judging them on is how well the team meets or exceeds these different categories on the rubrics. So again, right here, I have the core values rubric up on the screen right now. And you can see that, again, teams are scored from beginning, developing, accomplished, or exceeds. And you can, assign numerical values if you want to those 1, 2, 3, or 4, if you want to think about it in a numerical term. Again, for the core values rubric, as you see, how they talk, when they talk about it, they talk about how it is observed. So, whether discovery is observed across the team. And that's pointed out as observed because they're observing how the team did that while working on robot design and while working on innovation project. They are not looking to find out specifically how they did um, core values as a separate part that is distinguished from innovation project or robot design. They are looking to see how core values was incorporated into their other work. So again, you get a 1, which is, minimally. Uh, Developing is inconsistently observed. Accomplish is consistently observed. Exceeds is not defined, as you see on the rubric. As a general kind of rule, the way I'm encouraging teams and judges to look at that this season is exceeds is perhaps the level of thoughtfulness, the level of intentionality, the level of reflection that the team displayed about that over the course of the season. It's real easy to think about that in discovery. There are lots of teams that will talk, that during that judging session, for instance, you might get a sense that, oh, yeah, they all, from them talking about the project, we can tell that they all learned something. But they're, or, as they're working on the robot, you can say, oh, yeah, it sounds like they learned something. But there are other teams that will talk about, setting goals for what they wanted to learn, or they will talk about having meetings where they reflected on what they learned and they thought about what next steps that they would want, what other things they would want to learn, and had that level of intentionality that kind of went beyond just judges being able to glean or understand that they did something, but showed that they really thought about it. To me, that is really what would, in most cases, take a team from accomplished to exceeds in most of these kind of categories. So again, for the core values rubric, you've got the core values. That's all they really are. So if the team pays attention to the core values at first, discovery, innovation, impact, inclusion, teamwork, and fun, that is what the rubric is. That's what the judges are looking for. Moving on to innovation project, this rubric is fairly similar to what we've seen in past years. Looking to identify the problem and how well they've done the research. As we're going into innovation project, I do want to hop out of here for 1 minute and just look at what the innovation project is. Again, this is the language of the innovation project that is in the engineering notebook. A very big thing that people, you might want to think about this, remember, though this is the Cargo Connect season, the word cargo is actually not in the innovation project, other than in the title, right? Other than in the name of the season. What you're asked to do is to identify a specific problem related to making the journey, the transportation journey of products better. So, they're looking at they're using the term products. They are not using the word cargo in that sense, and they're looking at transportation journey. Now, obviously, cargo is very related there, but to think about that. The biggest issue I've been getting a lot of questions about is what constitute products. First is not clarified that at this point. I don't know if they will issue an update clarifying the term, what is a product and what is not a product. I will tell you that as of right now, based on my understanding, please do not look at a topic unless there's an update from first saying you can. Please do not choose a project that is dealing with live people. Live people, in order to be a product, would essentially have to be property. And I do not think you will find many judges sympathetic to a team that is referring to people as property. So but other than that, I think, again, for the project, if you're looking at, is this project okay? Think about the terms in this challenge document. Think about how a team would explain it to judges. It's hard. It's very difficult for us to say in advance, yes, this is a good project. No, this is a bad project, because we don't know what your team is going to say to the judges in the judging room and how they're going to explain it. You could write an email to me that sounds great, or even the team could write an email to me that sounds great, and then they could explain it completely differently to the judges. And then, the judges could get confused and not understand it as being connected to this challenge. And then everyone would get very grumpy with me. And I don't like people being grumpy with me, because I told you that the project was great. So all I could try to do is really remind you that judging is really a conversation that the team has with the judges. And so if the team has any doubt,
they want to be as clear as possible and think about in their presentation, if there's any doubt to them whether their project and the problem that they have chosen is connected and fits in this, then they would want to prepare in their presentation and also for the Q&A period to be able to explain why they believe their topic fits into a problem related to making the transportation journey of products better. And if you can explain that to judges, then they should be fine. Okay, so you do that, you identify that problem, and then you design and create a new piece of technology, equipment, or method of transportation that could improve the journey of the products. Again, so we are looking for new, ideally, and we are looking for a piece of technology, equipment, or method of transportation. So again, this is similar to last year, but for people who are looking from years past, the difference is that means we're not necessarily really looking at like laws, because it used to be that you could come up with like a new policy or a new law. It would be difficult to say how that would fit into as a piece of technology, equipment, or method of transportation, right? So make sure that you're fitting into the innovation solution is fitting into this. Share ideas, collect feedback, iterate on the solution, and then create a presentation. So again, I just wanted to go over that because that is the wording of the challenge. So we will hop back out of here and hop back into the rubric, and we will scroll back down to the innovation project rubric. So again, the same as core values, 1, 2, 3, 4, beginning, developing, accomplished, exceeds. Exceeds is not defined, but again, primarily thinking about intentionality, review, reflection by the team. You know, that is in most cases what would separate a team from being accomplished versus exceeds. I'm not going to look at, for instance, clear detailed research from a variety of sources. I don't want to, I'm hoping we don't get into a situation where like 3 resources is an accomplished, 5 resources is an exceeds. I don't want to, I'm not interested in focusing on quantity, or I want to focus on quality. So, instead I would think about, for instance, did the team, do some research in this article, and then after reading this article, they realized that they needed to learn some other thing, and they, had a meeting and discussed that. Oh, well, now that we learned this, we really need to find out more about this, and that caused them to go somewhere else. Or they talked to one expert, and then after talking to that expert, they realized that they needed to talk to a different kind of expert, or go do some research on a different kind of book. What kind of, it's that level of like reflection, that level of thinking, and that level of intentionality to their approaches that, to me, that would really distinguish teams. So I'm hoping, teams get that concept. So again, I don't want to, go in too detailed. If people have questions about the different sections, identify, design, create, iterate, communicate. The big thing I will point out, because it has been updated this year, is an iterate. Again, looking at it, minimum sharing of solutions, sharing with user or professional. Accomplishes now sharing their solution with a user and professional. So again, what they're looking at is whether, the team is sharing with, people who this is applicable to, right? So either users who could benefit from using their idea, or would benefit if their idea was implemented, or professionals who kind of work in that field and have knowledge that, could help the team, right? By knowing whether their idea would work, or give them advice, give them knowledge about how to make it better, things like that. So iterate and communicate. So that's, your innovation project rubric, and then your robot design rubric. Now remember, for robot design, as has been the case for this past several years, there will not, I repeat, there will not be a game table in the judging room. The team will come into the judging, they'll bring their robot to judging. They will bring any attachments that they have built, any jigs that they have built, anything they've built or made, but they will not be, running their robot on a table to show the judges. The team will run the robot at the robot game, and the refs are basically our 4th category of judges. They will be, reffing and determining how well they did performing. The judges are there to learn about the design process in robot design and how the team came up with a strategy, how the team, decided what they wanted to build and how they wanted to build it, and how they tested it, and what they did to make sure it ran. The rest will decide whether it actually runs right. Um, so again, hopefully that's clear. So when they come into judging, they're not going to be running the robot. Instead, they're going to be giving a presentation talking about what they did during the season to strategize what missions they wanted to do or what kind of robot they wanted to build and why, and what they did to build that robot, what they did to, change it, how they programmed that robot, how they, made it clear. All of that is what we want to hear about in the judging room. Why they chose different missions. Yes, we would love to hear how you tested, how often those missions worked. If there was a criteria like, okay, we were in it X number of times and we were looking for it to succeed Y times out of that X. And when it did, then we did this. And when it didn't, we did that. That is great. That's what we want to hear. But we don't, it would be unfair to just have teams come into a room and run the robot on a table that they've never run it on, in a room they've never run it on, and say, oh, that's how we're going to determine who ran well. Because as most teams should know, even on a table that you practice on every time, one time it might run perfectly. Well, actually, I don't know. I've never had a team that's had it run perfectly, but it but maybe it does for some teams. So one time it runs perfectly, and another time it runs, the exact opposite, right? So, that would not be, so that's why we want to hear what they've done. And obviously, instead of just see it one time and think that that's going to show accurately what the team worked on all season. And again, this really follows a very similar pattern to the innovation project rubric: identify, design, create, iterate, communicate. That is really, the engineering processes that we're coming up with, right? That you're planning, you're designing, you're making, you're improving, and then you're sharing. That is kind of the design process that first is laying out that we're trying to learn about in judging. So those are my quick run over of the rubrics. A few other things I want to mention is, we encourage teams to bring documentation or materials to share, to show the judges during, the judging session. For instance, bringing copies of the program that are with explanations of how it worked to show during the judging session, either during the presentation or potentially during the question and answer period. We are not having teams bring materials to give to the judges to keep. Anything you want to show and share with the judges should be shared during that 30-minute judging session. The judges do not have time to go through and read materials afterwards. And again, the team is being judged on what they shared during the judging session. So, do not bring links and give judges links and ask them to look at materials. Do not bring, if you want to bring a big binder to show during the session, great, that the team or a poster to show and that the team can refer to and point at and talk about during their presentation and or during question and answers. That's perfectly fine. But you wouldn't want to then try to give that binder to the judges and say, here, you look through this and learn everything we did. Again, these are about presentations and answering question and answer periods. Not, this is not a hunt and find. This is not a searching expedition for where the judges are going to look to see what documents you left. Where this is not about, again, create documents, share the documents, explain the documents during the judging session. That's fantastic. We definitely encourage teams to document during the season. That is a big part of the design process. And again, it can be seen in like the idea of having work plans and different kinds of things like that, but do not try to give materials to the judges to have them keep. That is my quick, 20-minute rundown of what judging is like here in Illinois. Does anyone have any questions? And if you don't have any questions now, that's fine. If you have questions later, you can always email me. You can always email Sarah and she will forward it on to me, or she will answer herself, either one. if anyone is nervous about this new 30-minute judging session, I just will add that the concept in part is that this eases the transition. The judges get to know the team a whole lot better because they get to see everything the team has done. The team also now, it's much more efficient time-wise. The team doesn't have to go in and introduce themselves 3 different times at 3 different sets of judges. They get to, know the judges too, which actually, I've heard a lot of teams before they do this judging feel nervous about it. But most of the teams I've seen that have gone through this judging, because I've judged this in other regions, and we also did our state championship last year, have actually really liked it because, again, they go in once, they don't have, they can, only have to get nervous before judging one time. They get to go in and they get to explain it all. Now, the one big thing to think about, though, in an in-person judging is that means that the team has to bring everything into them when they first go into that judging room, right? So that means they need to bring any project materials and any robot design materials. That means if they're going in a costume for their innovation project, then they're most likely going to be in that costume the entire time, even while they're doing their robot, unless it's a real quick change while they're standing there, they can just pull something off and they have other clothes underneath, right? So that is something that teams have to think about this year, is that in the 30-minute session, they can't, get all dolled up, all dressed up in one outfit, and then leave and get changed into something else for the next judging session. And again, everything they bring in, if they have massive amounts of materials for project and props, and they have a huge robot with a ton of, 2 carts worth of accessories, they have to think about how they're going to get all that in and bring it in with them as you're going into judging. So just be aware of that and think of, the team needs to think about that as they're preparing. If you give me enough time, I'll think of questions for myself. But
Kyle, this is Sudha here from
yes,
Peoria.
how are you doing?
I'm doing good, Kyle. Thank you. Sorry, I've been like asking a lot of questions to Sarah, and because I'm a rookie judge and just trying to learn more about it. So excuse me for some silly questions that might come from me. Kyle, like I mean, even though we are a rookie team, we kind of have 8 kids with varied grade levels, like from 4th grade to 7th grade. Um, sometimes I'm nervous that some of the kids might be talking more than the other kids, and we keep insisting on teamwork when we are doing the sessions. But I'm just like little nervous that when the question and answer session comes, then the kids who are more vocal would probably take over and then talk up over the other kids, right? And not giving them a chance, just to make sure that, oh, it's being answered, because we have only 5 minutes time. Can you give some tips on how we can make use of that 5 minutes time effectively? Is there a checklist, or I mean, something that we can follow? And how can I give time for 8 kids to talk in that 5 minutes?
Yeah, so I will say that if the teams that do it well practice a lot. And it really does come down to that a lot of teams, it's about getting it, figuring it out early and practicing it. And you're right. I mean, back when I used to have a team, I usually had anywhere from 6 to 10 kids on my team, and especially when you have 8, 9, 10 kids, making sure they all have parts and have something to say during that time, both during the presentation itself and during the question and answer, because you're right. Some kids definitely are more comfortable. Some kids are definitely more gregarious and more excited to talk, and others tend to be more wallflowers. It is important to remember that we are looking for all team members to be involved in all different areas, right? So we are looking for all team members to be involved in the innovation project, all team members to be involved in robot design. So I know some people who have had large teams in the past used to try to divide it up and have half the team work on the project and half the team work on robot design. And that's definitely not an approach you want to take. You definitely want to make sure that everyone's learning and everything. But again, I highly recommend doing practice question and answer periods with your team.
Okay.
Asking them questions, having them think about how to make sure that different people are answering questions. And there are lots of different ways that teams can do it. So I hate
I hate throwing out too many examples just because there will be a lot of other ways that you could do it. But I mean, I know some teams will appoint one or two of the older students to kind of help make sure and encourage other students to answer. And especially if they're practiced and they know what kind of things their teammates know and don't know, sometimes they can help kind of, say, like, oh, well, I know we did this and so, do you want to tell the judges some more about this? And I've seen, some teams do that very well, for instance.
Okay.
But especially when you've got that age range, if you really work with those older students to talk about how, part of what they really want to do is be mentoring and encouraging to the younger students and helping them, do their best. And that's one of the things I've actually loved the most about First is, I've seen so many other kind of programs where, yes, the older students just dominate and they tell the younger students to be quiet and wait their turn until they're old, right? I mean, I've seen that in Scouts so many times when I used to be involved with Scouts. You just kind of wait your time to move up, and sometimes in some of these troops. But in First, it's all about working as a team and lifting each other up. And so, again, if you work through the season with that, practice that, incorporate that into your meetings, I think, you'll see typically it does do really well and the students get really enthusiastic about then, helping each other and bringing the best out of each other.
Thanks, Kyle. That was helpful. And then can they have scripts like a flashcard or a script just to help them with that? Help them with some points when they're talking? Is that allowed, or they just have to speak?
Yeah, I will say that most teams probably have, cards or scripts that they, I'll say that I see more teams that read their presentation than do it from memory. I will say that judges often are more impressed by the teams that have it by memory. But I also know teams that have found, shortcuts or hidden little ways. Like I know I've seen teams, for instance, that have big posters that have information that's showing to the judges, and they hold it in front of themselves. And on the back of the poster, they have kind of a cheat sheet and some script kind of things that they can see that the judges can't, right? So there are definitely different ways. But again, it depends on the level of comfort of the student. We want every student to succeed. We don't hold it against a team. It's not a negative for a team that they use a script, but again, sometimes it is seen by judges as a positive when they know us so well that they don't need one, if that makes sense. But you definitely, again, it depends on the level, and you want to make sure your team has what they need to feel comfortable and to have a good experience in judging. And I know some kids get very nervous, and having something written that they can look at is really helpful. Again, another thing that teams will do sometimes, though, that as an in-between, is if they have posters, then the posters, made for the judges. But then, if the team doesn't remember something, they can turn and point at the poster and kind of read it off and show the judges and explain it to them. And then again, so there are lots of kind of in-between, depending on where the team fits in, that they can, have a, full out script written for themselves, have some notes, on the back of a poster, have a poster that they can then point to if they need to, or to just having it fully memorized. And teams can be anywhere on that spectrum, and they're all fine.
Okay. That really helps, Kyle. Thank you.
Sure. And thank you for the question, because I always feel better when I get questions. I feel very sad by myself just not asking me anything. I always get jealous of D because everyone asks D questions over and over and over.
Then Kyle, I have one more. This is Lata. I'm the assistant coach to Sudha's team, and like she said, we are a rookie team, and to me, I have not even seen like how the scrimmage works or how the mat looks like. So this is all pretty new to me. So does the judging happens for scrimmage too, or is it only for the final day?
So scrimmages really depend on who is organizing the scrimmage and how they have it run. I mean, there are definitely, in past years, I know there have been some people that just run a robot game scrimmage, but I know a lot of our scrimmages do incorporate judging as well. So again, that's going to depend on what scrimmage you guys go to, and who's running it and how they have it structured. But I would say the majority, in recent years, the majority of our scrimmages have had teams be able to practice, the presentation as well.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Sure. And congratulations, you guys. You know, this is a better year to be a rookie team than last year, I think. I hope, knock on wood, that everything goes well and we get to have in-person things. But this is still a hard year with everything that's going on. So I commend you guys, and I hope you guys have a lot of fun. And that's the one thing I'll just say is that that I always like to remind coaches of is to make sure your team, really for me, the most important core value is the bottom one. So have fun and remember that no matter how much or how little they do, they're always accomplishing stuff, and to make sure like the celebrated what they have achieved. I love it when teams come into judging and talk about, oh, every time we get a new mission done, we had a dance party or we all got some candy or we all did this, or, talking about when they hit milestones and goals, what the team did to celebrate and have fun and congratulate each other. That really lifts my heart. And again, finding ways to make it fun and for the kids to get excited and have fun while they're learning and working hard. It's so cool to me.
I comment on that kind. Definitely, that's more important, and that's how they learn most of the stuff and they remember it well. So one other question is I have is on the research part. So the innovation, right? For that fourth grade to seventh grade, and with the topic of transportation, at least I see it, it's kind of becoming hard to come up with very innovative idea, because whatever we are coming up with so far is already implemented or in the process of implementation. So could you help me out in some in that line, like what can be the pointers to look at to actually find that research area?
I will say that finding innovative things seems to get harder every year. And again, back when I coached, the number of times my team came up with something and then like a week later realized that somebody had already done it.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
that up and down they get from like getting excited and then realizing, wait, this already exists.
Honestly, Kyle, I know the kids have good ideas, wonderful ideas, and we go search it. They didn't look it up and they said it, but it's just like common sense, or a lot of discussions or the field trips that we make too. These kids have some ideas, and they're like, we go back and look at it. Yeah, it's already in there. For example, like eco fuel, that's one of the lines. We visited a field trip, and the transportation company, they have already implemented it. So now we are kind of back to square one. I'm like, okay, what else we can try to research in that area.
And I'll say that, again, a lot of teams will try to find something completely 100% new, and that's really hard. A lot easier is an improvement upon something, a way to make something a little bit better, and that is just as good. And so to think about, for instance, I know some teams, are looking at the design of trucks, and how, they've already changed I know trucks are big rigs look a lot different than they did when I was a kid, right? Already they've thought about ways to make them more aerodynamic, but is that the most aerodynamic? Are there other ways that are, slight improvements or and again, and a lot of times from talking to experts, they can say, well, this does it, this is good because it's this much better than something that was done in the past and improves it this much. But, are there ways, what could it be improved more? What things are they looking at? So a lot of times I'd say talking to experts can tell them like what areas people are working on improving and getting things better. And then the team can kind of join in that hunt of what can be better. And remember too, that, yes, it's better. It's always, seen as a little bit better if the team has something that could be implemented today. But a lot of times teams come up with great ideas, and I've seen great ideas as top projects at World Festival that, the technology is, hundreds of years away still. That, there's a huge leap in what's available and what could be done. So it doesn't have to be something that could be done that they could actually make, that someone could go out and produce tomorrow. I mean, there's definitely an imaginative element
and thinking ahead. But if they come up with that and they know, what, yes, this couldn't be made now, but it could be made someday if this happens, sort of thing. That is just as good and is fine. It is, as long as the team can understand and explain that. But yes, we're right there with you. I will say again, if you look at the create, so minimal development of an innovative solution, partial development of an innovative solution, clear development of an innovative solution. So again, the level of innovation that's expected is not, completely new. So, and that is just something, and yes, you might score, but that is also just one line. So if they come up with something and then it turns out that they thought it was new and the judges realized that, yeah, they just saw an ad about it, last night on TV, that is just one section. So it's explaining how their process was, how they figured out, what this was, what research they did to try to determine if it was new or an improvement, and who they talked to is really the important part.
Okay. So I do see that detailed model or drawing of the innovation. So would that be part of the presentation?
Yeah, so they would want to make sure to have a model or a drawing that they could bring with them, and they could kind of show the judges during their presentation. And that is important. That just got added to the rubrics a couple of years ago. And so you definitely do want to have that, because again, if you don't have one, then it would be pretty unclear, and so the team would obviously score way down here. But again, this is, you do not have to have a working model. You do not have to, I've seen lots of these that are, simple drawings. I've seen models built out of Legos. I've seen, cutouts of cardboard, a cardboard box that they write, refrigerator on, that ends up being, a refrigerator as part of a solution in past years. Again, these do not have to be, expensive, kind of fabrications of any kind.
Yeah. So would it make a difference with a 3D model printing or a 3D modeling of that innovation versus a hand drawn? Would the rating would it differ?
It would not. I mean, a 3D model, if the team was to explain that they, programmed, or, how they created that, could definitely, might be tend to be considered, more detailed. For instance, again, it's going to depend on how the team explains it to the judges. But again, the main part is that, they are able to identify, label everything. A team that makes something out of popsicle sticks versus a team that 3D printed stuff, they can get the exact same score.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else? Well, again, I don't want to keep people here. I want to be respectful of your time. I appreciate those of you who attended, and those of you who watch this later. If you have any questions about the judging process, about the rubrics, about anything else about judging, again, remember, you'll typically have anywhere from generally 2 to 4 judges in the judging room, judging all 3 of these areas at once, during that judging period. So if you have any questions down the road, please do always, feel free to reach out to me, or reach out to Sarah, and we will be happy to help you any way we can. And, we hope that you guys have a great season and that your teams have a great season. We're definitely hoping to see as many of you as possible at events this season, either in person or remotely for those people who choose a remote option. And I think it's going to be great. It always is.
Thank you so much, Kyle and Sarah.
Have a great night, everyone.
Thanks, Kyle. Thanks, everybody.